First, the form. The Stainer form. Unlike a Strad, which is basically flat, the Stainer is this high arch. Now, because of this high arch here, creates an effect on the edge of the violin top here, where the edge isn't straight. I don't know if you can see it, but it rises and falls. Anyways, if you carve this from the top down to the edge, good luck, because you have no reference at all as to where this is relative to the edge, the final edge. In other words, you carve the inside out first and create the edge on the bottom. I'll show you in a second. How does this work? Well, first we have the purfling, which creates a pivot point, so the whole plate can go up and down. Second, we got where the bridge sits is not in the center. It's like on a piano. The felt hits about that far on the, hits on a node. The node sits there. I can pick this up and with my, I don't know if you hear the note. Anyways, it has a note right now, and that note is a G. And that came from this form. Not from me. The shape of the form creates that note. These F-holes are harmonic curves. If you look at the purfling, how it's softwood, hardwood, softwood, that allows a sponginess sort of for the plate to vibrate on. Now, just like that, each annual ring going down here has cellulose on either side of it. Now, 80% of the density of the wood is in the annual ring, and 20% of the density in the cellulose. But the volume of the cellulose is 80% greater than the annual ring. But it does create a sponge on either side of the annual ring, so the annual ring can vibrate freely, independent of the next one, but it does have an effect on the next one. Now, in sympathy with the note you bow, every line that goes to this curve is a subharmonic of that. Each bar now, individually, there is, in sympathy, will go in resonation with the note played before it hits really the bridge. The note then bang, the plate is in resonance already. Now it becomes that one note. The four combine into one, poof, and you have the note come off. And opposite on the inside, the note goes down, hits the bottom, which has opposite curves, rebounding it through the F-hole, and you have the sound. Now, I don't want to get into the boot sizes yet, because that becomes a little personal here. On the inside, one other thing about here. Now, we should talk somewhat about the harmony of the form. Now, here's the bass bar that sits on the inside. You wonder, well, what shape is the bass bar supposed to be? Well, turns out that the shape is the shape of the outside. It'll fit there, it'll fit in there, with these going over the tops. You can use it, you can put it there, and it dictates an arc there, an arc here, and here, etc. Again, a harmony of form. And this is throughout the entire instrument. You'll see these harmonies will continue to come up. Now that bass bar there does create 4 quadrants in the instrument. This being where the highest notes are, the highest frequencies will hit there first, although mostly here, also here, here, and here, but mostly here. Midsection, let's say for example the A string, just the G string, or getting confused here. But this is the lowest note here, the biggest quadrant. This is the second biggest quadrant, then here and here. Now, 4 quadrants, creating that those lines, and this is the bottom half of that annual ring now, going the other way. So it's created a bar shape like this. In itself will ring. Now, another interesting thing about this stainer is that from a point in the center, every point around it is end grain. Because you have to cut down. It's all end grains. Equally on the inside, all end grain. So it's all holes sticking out right now. All holes, all holes. That's the way the direction goes, through these humps, through here. Now the thickness of this, I use my fingers, mostly to judge. Both hands. One hand will give you a different feel than the other hand. One hand's to your right brain, one hand's to your left brain. One's linear, one's abstract. It gives you an average of pretty much the thickness it is. You can also, when you reach this point, around 4 millimeters, what happens is the color changes from black to starting with just dark red. And it'll go to yellow, and then it'll go to white. Then you're in trouble. Anyways, it's just a general way at the end to see the thickness of the entire plate. You can, I've used it to see really dark areas that I need to remove, rather than using a caliper to, not saying I don't use, I have to know for reference, but if I'm right or wrong, I do have a caliper. This is the caliper I use. It's a simple, guy made it for me actually. I drew the picture. I've seen one once, brass one. Kind of lost it though. But that opens 5 millimeters. 5. So, open, close. Fits everywhere. No sense getting like an expensive one ain't gonna help you. 0. Well, I guess. Strad maybe. Those are pretty linear things. Their edges are pretty straight. Because, that you have this offset edge. When you go to bend your sides, you can't use the kind of sides that they send you with the neck block, which is these thin things. There's not enough wood there. I need to have a wedge here at the top, thicker in the center, thinning out. Because then when I bend it on my bender, it bends the offset of the plate. Can't do it with just thin wood. Just start with a thick piece of wood like this, and you just carve it down, thin on one side all across, thick in the center, moving out thin, moving out thin. Got that? That's going to be important later, because I'm going to show you how the neck is used to actually bend this and this side. On this side, you can bend it that way, bend it in here, tie your strings up, use the pegs to pull. They didn't have fancy benders back then. Anyways, to get to that later. So, given that, I'd say the most important aspect is that edge. That's your only reference point. So best to create it first. Like when I cut out the inside here first, this edge, I can create it then and just leave it and then go do the top. But the edge is already established, so when I look at it, I can see the true edge I'm looking at, have a true reference. Imagery. On this plate, I see a lot of different imagery when I'm carving. And it's the imagery that I remember from each one that is my guide going through it. You can't measure, you can't really use a template because a template will, again, give you like a straight across one dimension. And you may get it perfect, but relative to down here, and it's just spatially is it in the right place? You could have 3 templates on here, all correct, but in the wrong place, spatially to each other. I always look at it myself with the F-holes facing toward, like the big ones looking at me, like eyes would be looking at me.